Frolo is the app that several thousand single parents say has been life-changing for them in the most profound way. If you're a single parent and want to connect with other single parents and open yourself up to an amazing support network and new experiences, then the Frolo app is the one for you. The Frolo app has two modes: community mode for meetups and holidays, guidance and support, chats, and discovery to make it easy to find like-minded local single parents near you. Dating mode is a mindful, safe, and respectful dating offering where everybody is there to date another single parent. All users on Frolo are verified, putting our user safety first always. The Frolo app is free to download and use, with the option to upgrade to premium for access to lots of additional premium features for an elevated experience, which makes it easier than ever to access the incredible connections and experiences you're looking for. To download Frolo, search for Frolo, Frolo, on the App or Google Play Store, or go to www.frolo.com for more info. We can't wait to see you on the app soon. Hi, I'm Zoe Desmond, the founder of Frolo, the award-winning app for single parents that features both community and dating modes. And I'm also co-author, along with my wonderful friend Rebecca Cox, that I made through Frolo, of the book How to Be a Happy Single Parent. Hello and welcome to another episode of the Frolo podcast. Today I am so thrilled to be joined by Zoë Chapman, who is a single mom, solo founder of KiddyWiz, and product inventor of the Whizzer, the world's first portable eco-toilet for kids and adults. Zoë, it's so nice to have you on the Frolo podcast.
Thank you. It's a pleasure, an honour.
It's been so long. We obviously have been aware of each other for a few years
From the
now,
beginning.
just in the single parent world that we're in, and both doing our own things. So it's so lovely to have the opportunity to reconnect properly and hear about all of the amazing and exciting things you've been up to. And I said before I started recording that I didn't want to get into any conversation because there's so much juicy bits I know that we will be able to get through. So maybe we can start, given who our audience is, single parents. It would be great to hear about your single parent story.
Yeah, sure. I mean, from the get-go, everything I do, whether it's business, personal, whatever it is, everything somehow is connected to being a single parent. So it will be the theme running through everything I say or do, because it's always as a result of being a single parent. So, I mean, if I was to go right back to the beginning, I think a lot of my actual story I covered when I wrote the blog, because it's quite intense, my story of how I became a single mum. But just to kind of condense it, I became a single mum when I was 6 weeks pregnant. I was I 27? I was 27. I'd had previously like a history of abusive, controlling relationships. So I'd never, from being a teenager, so I'd never known what an actual healthy relationship or a normal relationship looks like. I'd watched all my friends do it the right way and all the rest of it. And in the midst of a lot of chaos and a lot of things that were going on in my own life, I had reconnected with someone I'd known as a teenager whilst I was in one of the long-term toxic relationships I was in. And it was just on a friend basis at the time. So when we reconnected, it was kind of like, it wasn't like meeting someone new. He already knew about me. He knew what I'd been through and things like that. So it felt very comfortable and natural. And things happened very quickly. And then he showed his true colours, let's just say. We broke up, realised it was probably not very healthy. But by that point, I was already pregnant. So we reconnected again and went to my first scan and, couldn't believe I was pregnant, and it was kind of just such a whirlwind. I was so happy, given everything I'd been through. And then all of a sudden, he does this kind of crazy, I don't even know how to describe it, just turn around and was just like, I don't want the baby. I don't want to be with you. I don't want anything to do with anything. I don't want to be a dad. I don't want to be. And I was kind of like, well, what? Completely dumbfounded.
What stage of the pregnancy were you
I was
at this point?
literally 6 weeks, because I was just about to go for my 6-week scan.
Yeah.
And so he was just like, you have to have an abortion, was very, very adamant that I was going to have an abortion. There was no way I was keeping this child. And he really got into my head about it all. Long story short, I didn't. I completely cut him off, and I was just like, look, if you don't want to have anything to do with then that's your decision. I'm going to continue. And so, yeah, I just cut it off from there. We didn't speak. I attempted some updates. He was pretty, he was completely like not responsive at all. And I just carried on the pregnancy on my own. I had so much going on at the time. I kind of just focused on my own mental health and getting through everything and trying to be like prepared for what was going to happen.
And that must have been so hard, because pregnancy, as we all know, anyone who's been pregnant, is, our hormones are all over the place. It's, a kind of, as it is. And it's a vulnerable time. And especially if there's relationship issues or a breakup, I can only imagine how hard that was on you.
Yeah, I mean, I was also caring for my dad, so who was severely disabled, and so that was like my main focus, was kind of trying to keep him alive, and whilst I was growing this new life inside me. And weirdly enough, I was almost the healthiest I've ever been in that time, although, it was also a really weird, lonely time, in the sense of, going to those hospital appointments and, things like, I remember feeling the baby kick for the first time, and like all these kind of things, or like when I've have cravings, or when I'm up in the night, like all those things, I know that people would usually have a partner beside them for. I didn't have that. And so I went through like this, like really almost dark journey in one sense, where I was just like, I'm just damaged goods. I remember I used to use that word a lot, like, oh, I'm damaged goods. And really, like, my mum was saying, no one's going to want you if you're, you've got a baby. And it was just kind of reinforcing what the dad had said. The last thing he said to me was, you will never be anything more than a single mum in a council flat on benefits. Like, that was it, right? And I was just kind of like,
horrible.
Yeah, so I had all of this kind of really negative stuff, but then I was surrounded by single mums. Like, most of my friends were single mums. So although their setups were very different, the partner, their exes, were in their life in some capacity. They were all really strong, and I was like surrounded by these strong single mums. So I kind of knew that it was possible. But equally, I had no clue what was in store for me and the actual reality of it, however much I kind of prepared for it. And then, giving birth. Again, it's just such a massive, massive moment, and emotional, and hormones and all the rest of it. And a part of me was just like, so focused on being, ready to be a good enough mum for this baby, that I'd brought into this world knowing that they were only going to have one parent, like the guilt of that, and making sure that I can live up to kind of the expectations that I put on myself to say that, no, you can do this. You can absolutely do this on your own. And so worrying constantly that I was failing. And I remember coming home. Actually, I remember being in the hospital, and I think it was my friend, as she was leaving, she said to me, are you going to be all right on your own? And I remember saying, I'm not on my own for the first time. I'm not on my own anymore. And I had this baby, and I was just like, I felt like, like this sense of completeness. But then in very quick succession, I get home and I am on my own with this baby, and I didn't know what to do.
I'm just remembering the beginning, and it's so hard. Like, I remember just thinking, and I wasn't a single parent from the beginning. I was still in, my relationship at the time, and it was so hard. And I just remember thinking, why did nobody tell me how unbelievably hard it is having a new baby and being a new mom? I couldn't believe how intense it was. So I'm just trying to imagine for you, dealing with that on your own. That must have been really, really tough.
Absolutely the toughest thing I have ever done in my life. Like, I remember calling up the hospital probably about a week in, and just in the middle of the night crying, like, I can't feed my baby. No one taught me how to feed my baby, and I don't know how to feed my baby. He screams constantly and I don't know what to do. And they're like, what, did a midwife not come around? I'm like, no one's been to see me. No one's coming. I hadn't eaten a meal. No one was there. Like, have you eaten? Because if you don't eat, then you're not going to produce milk in order to feed your baby. Like, the very basics. Everyone was so kind of like, what it's like when you have a baby and everyone wants to come and look at the baby. And then it's like, okay, and then they come and then they go, and then you're exhausted and then you're panicking like, oh my gosh, I've had to make them a cup of tea, and then I've got to wash those cups up on top of everything else. Like, that kind of thing, like, and just being emotionally present for people visiting. But when they go, you're back on your own, and you're like, I still don't know what I'm doing. I still don't know what. So I just remember just being like really panicked. And then even when I did go to the doctors, he had so many things wrong with him over the first year of his life. And it was always a thing of, oh, you're on your own, so you're a single mom. And it's like doctors would always focus on the fact that I was on my own, and it must be, always putting it back to my mental health. It cannot possibly be a medical concern with the baby. It must totally be something that you're doing because you're stressed out as a single mom. And I'm like, I remember being like, just look at my baby. I know there's something wrong.
So even stigma then from your healthcare providers
throughout.
Wow.
Throughout. I cannot tell you the amount of times that just because I'm a single mom, I am like treated so. And also I'm aware that I don't really look my age, and I look, when I'm not wearing makeup, which is pretty much all the time when you're a mum of a young, I did look like I was about 18. So I had this stigma of like, oh, she's just a young single mum that was just looked exhausted because I was exhausted. And so combined, it was just kind of like, I was just a write-off and everything was blamed on me. And so it was only when I pushed and they were like, okay, they found out, first of all, that he was suffering with thrush for, I think it was like something crazy, like 17 weeks or something I'd counted. And it had gone under, like, that's the kind of thing that midwives and all the rest pick up really quite early on. And I literally fought. He was lactose intolerant, so he had to be put on special milk. He had severe reflux to the point where I'd feed him and he would chuck everything up. So he was really underweight. There was just so many things, like one thing after another. And even as he got older, that stigma never went, ever. I remember there was one time, so Mason suffered something called febrile convulsions, which is just a horrendous thing. Again, like all these things when you're on your own, I cannot even tell you the panic. My dad had just died. I was arranging my dad's funeral. It was like 5 days after, and I put Mason in the bath, and he'd been no sign of a temperature, no sign of anything. And then next thing I know, he'd like sort of just gone silent. You know, when you know there's something wrong with your child. And I'd been on the phone, like organising my dad's funeral, and I'd looked at him and I knew that there was something there. I put down the phone quickly, grabbed him out of the bath, and he was completely lifeless. And I just called an ambulance. I was screaming, like, my baby, just screaming. Anyway, my neighbour luckily came over. She was amazing. I had a neighbour that would come around every day and help me bath him, give him his medicine and all of that kind of stuff from when he was born. I literally couldn't be without her. And anyone that's followed me on social media will know she's called Nanny Margaret, and she's like a staple. She'll be like
amazing.
Yeah. But anyhow, yeah. So you end up that as a single mom, you do end up relying on people that aren't necessarily family, isn't family.
Yeah.
You don't have that kind of setup. But yeah, I remember him being rushed into hospital, and I was lying in one of the bays with him. And the first thing the nurse did was look at me and was like, "Have you got a social worker?" And I was like, bearing in mind, I'd heard all the other cubicles come and go and all the rest of it. No one had been asked if they've got a social worker. And I'm well aware that now it's a thing. They have to, in order to not look like that they're kind of discriminating against anyone. Like apparently it's asked to everyone. But at that time, we were talking like nearly 10 years ago, that was not a standard question. And I had never heard that been asked. And I remember having to say to her, like, I know I look disheveled. My dad's just died. My baby's nearly just died. So it's the middle of the night. I know I don't look particularly together, but no, I do not have a social worker. And I don't know what you're implying. So yeah, no, it's this whole single mum stigma has honestly followed me around constantly. And that's exactly why I started on Instagram and how we met, because
and
that leads straight to it, because it was a thing of always constantly being judged for everything I did, as if I was incapable because I was a single mom. And that's where when I had nowhere to vent. That's what it is. That's where it came from. I had nowhere to vent about this experience. And I also felt like I'd been in so many situations, and as a parent, things like going to the playground, that was a really triggering place for me. Just taking my son to a playground was so triggering, because just watching, especially on the weekends tend to be when there's loads of dads taking their kids to the playground and families, and and I don't know whether it's just because you're so worried or focused on your own situation or what you're not giving your child, or think that they're missing out on whatever. But I would look at, the dads and the grandparents and all of this thing, and it would just be me always pushing Mason on the swing or doing whatever. And I'd just be like, it would just kill me, because I'm like, you're all I've got. You, this is it. Like, this is it. You're never going to have that. And it was just so, so triggering constantly. But yeah, like I said, I had nowhere to vent those kind of feelings, because as well, even when I did come across single parents, and single parents, I know, it's not an uncommon thing. I think at the time, the stat was like 1 in 4 families.
Yeah, 1 in 4 families.
Oh, yeah, I don't know where that second went, but yeah, so it's not like it shouldn't be. And I live in central London. Like, this is, nothing and everyone, and so, but I still felt like I'd never seen someone with my story to relate to. So even on social media, I didn't really use social media that much at the time. But when I would try and find things. I just still never found anyone I was like, oh yeah, that's like my story. Because where Mason's dad was completely not in the setup at all, where I didn't have this kind of family set up where, you know, I could have time off, and I literally hasn't had a night's sleep. Mason slept through the night when he went to primary school. So I hadn't had a night's sleep for like 4 years. So I was permanently sleep deprived, permanently like an emotional wreck that was hiding behind this kind of mask, as I remember referring it to. And so I just had no outlet, and I never wanted other people around me to feel burdened by my emotions and the way I felt.
Yeah. And I think a lot of us single parents tend to do that. I did that at the beginning as well. I just didn't want anyone to know, you know, any of my friends or family to see how tough I was finding things. I wanted it to seem like I had it all together. Yeah.
Why do we do that?
I know. It's this like pride, independent thing, or I'm a mom now, I've got to hold it together, or I don't know. But it's, you know, again, just going back to all of, you know, it takes a village. You said about Nanny, what's her name? Nanny Margaret. You know, it's so important to have that kind of support and community in our lives. And as you said, not everybody is, you know, fortunate enough to have an automatic family setup, you know, the way some people do for whatever reason. So, and then just thinking about where you are today, and there's lots that we need to talk about, all the amazing stuff you've been up to, including your Dragon's Den debut. But what, you know, in terms of then, and, you know, your journey until now, and how old is Mason now, actually?
He's going to be 12.
Wow, 12.
It's crazy. It's crazy. I think when I started on social media with the Not Just a Single Mum, Not Just a Single Mother Instagram, there was initially like totally private. You saw nothing about Mason, nothing about me. It was, like I said, it was purely just me trying to vent and see if there was other people out there that felt the same. Turns out there was, and turns out there's many people in my situation. But yeah, he was probably about like 6 or 7, maybe more, younger than that. And gradually I did start sharing my actual experiences and my actual life as a single mother. And had I not done that, this is why this is so critical, is that had I not done that, that's what drove me to Instagram. That's what taught me about building a community, building something on social media. And that whole community that came from Not Just a Single Mother, that was the basis of my business completely.
So I'd love to hear about that. What kind of inspired Kitty Whiz? Where did the idea come from? How did it start? Yeah, so many questions.
So I was obviously juggling a lot at that time when my son was potty training, and being on the go back and forth as you are with a toddler, but obviously with the added pressure of being a single mum, only being able to carry that amount of things and rushing between my dad and doing all the rest of the mum stuff that we're doing. Another thing that Mason picked up without me knowing, he had a hormone deficiency, but I didn't realize that at the time. So potty training, it is very common now. I know a lot about it, but potty training was very, he got it straight away. That was not the problem. It was how often he needed to go to the toilet. And it was just constant. So I used to carry around a takeaway cup. The one thing I taught myself how to do is my bit of appreciation for the day was I would buy myself a cup of coffee in the morning. And it was like my little step of a routine to get me out and into a routine. So this cup would then come with me through the day for Mason to wee in.
Right.
And I was like, surely there has got to be a better solution. So I started designing then. Bearing in mind, I do have a product design background. I did it at university and things. So, and I am just kind of creative anyway. So when I see things, I'm like, oh, that's really cool. That could, you know, I see the world a bit, I don't know, creatively, in the sense of I'm always looking at how I can solve problems. So yeah, it just one of my brain wave type things, and I tried to do something about it then, but as a single mom, no money, nothing at all to manufacture a product. I mean, even the internet wasn't as it is today. Social media, all the rest of the platforms and things you can do to build a business, it's moved on so much now. So at the time, I couldn't really do anything about it. My circumstances, there is no way, looking at now what I have to do to run this business, there is no way I could have done that back then anyway. And so I kind of left it. I'd sent some designs off to manufacturers. A few of them have actually been ripped off since then, which floored me and made me pivot even back then. So I've gone through loads of different things. It didn't just happen. And then when we went into the pandemic, I had just undergone emergency spinal surgery. So I was recovering. I'd gone from not being able to walk, or I was in like immense pain before the pandemic. The year previously, like I was just, I couldn't do anything at all. I'd just cry in pain every day. And then my condition got worse. I was rushed into spinal surgery. And then the pandemic hit. And then I was in this kind of like, oh my God, I've got a new lease of life. Really weird timing. What is it that I've always regretted, or that I always wished that I could have done if I had the chance? And that was it. That was, yeah, that was it. That was the thing that I wanted to do. And I'd always thought, well, if I one day walk into Boots and I see that someone else has put that product on the shelf, knowing how much I know that it's needed, then I would never forgive myself if I hadn't just given it a go. So I reached out to people that I already had in my network from where I'd been thinking, could I do this? Long story short, in very short time, I manufactured this product, got a factory, manufactured the product off the back of a ridiculous amount of personal credit cards, because I had no money. I couldn't even get a normal business loan. Again, the single mum thing, it just keeps on cropping up, everything I do. So I had no kind of assets. I was too high risk. There was no chance that I was ever going to make this business success with my credentials.
So you just had to go in with blind kind of faith in yourself and just say, right, this is a risk I want to take, and I'm putting everything on red or black or whatever.
It was bad. It was bad. It was like well, because I've got bipolar as well, which doesn't help in the sense of like, it helps in the sense of it's what has got me here. But a lot of the time it's like, oh, she's just going through a manic episode, which is where you think that you can do all of this stuff and you will just work and work and work on whatever it is that you're doing. And for me, those don't often last maybe more than a few months. But this, it was just never end. It's like a never ending high. And it was just like this obsession, which did end up in a big crash, but which was, really, really scary. But I'd risked everything. And if this didn't work, then I'm going to be in an even worse position than before, because I have not only a failed business, but I'd be in incredible amounts of debt. So because manufacturing a product, we're talking like the deposit of a house. to manufacture a product, and people don't realize that. And so I didn't have the money to like employ a team or anyone to help, or even just like Facebook ads or anything that most businesses would do. But what I did have was my single mom community. That's how it all started. So I basically, like, I remember sending these single moms samples of the Whizzer and being like, can you test this for me and let me know what you think? And I just did it. And then I just grew all through social media, because that was a free platform. And that was the only way that I could do it financially, is by growing it organically, and loads of other things, business related things, learning, and then just did not stop. Basically, I just kept going and going and going. And that's what pushed me through the whole community on social media, is what pushed me through everything. I shared everything, the whole journey on there. People would have a say in what the packaging looked like, and when I was designing the logo, or
Yeah, and the packaging looks fab. It's really lovely. The packaging, the branding. It's really lovely.
This is the thing. I've done it all myself, and it's amazing what you can do on your own. But I am going through a rebrand now, so now I am.
Okay, well, I'm sure it will be even better. But what about Dragon's Den? I have to ask, how did that come about? How was that experience?
So,
it must have been nerve-wracking.
Yeah. So, well, the whole process is, God, I think it feels like about 2 years in. But in terms of a timeline, I'd launched the product in 2021. I didn't even have a physical product though at that point. So first physical product actually only went out in sort of April, May time of 2021. And because it had picked up so much steam and I'd focused so much on this digital footprint, this organic digital footprint, I'd got awards by that point, and I'd, really put myself out there. I got an email 2022. So technically, yeah, it was only about a year really into it, from Dragon's Den saying, would you consider applying for the show? And at the time I was just like, this has got to be a spam message or something that's come from my website.
That's so cool that they came to you. That's so cool.
But they do, yeah. It turns out they do that. Like, yeah, there are other people that I know that have been approached directly, because I get a lot of people contacting me now saying they've been contacted, should they do it, and they want advice. So bearing in mind that my friend who'd actually given me her factory to manufacture the product had just done Dragon's Den. It hadn't aired yet, but she had just done Dragon's Den when I started. And then I had another friend that was doing Dragon's Den as well. It turns out they both had got through. One had Sarah Davis, and then the other one had Stephen and Deborah. So I knew that it was, something that I was constantly asked. I'm always asked, like, why don't you go on Dragon's Den? It's like, yeah, it was just a constant question from people.
Yeah.
But I know what it would take, and I didn't feel, being only a year into my journey, that I was ready for that. It financially and just the whole business, and I was winging it. Like, I just don't feel like I could stand up to that kind of interrogation. But the BBC team, the researchers, were so adamant that I would be fine. And they're like, look, just audition, just send us in the tapes, like just do this and see how it goes. And they're always like, you just need to get to the next stage. We just need this stage. It was just a constant thing. And I remember recording the first few videos whilst moving house as well, and having COVID, that was thrown in during that time as well. And so it was just a really mad process where I was going through all these things, but I couldn't tell anyone. So I was keeping everything up on social media as if nothing was going on. I went up to Manchester to film. Again, no one knew. You have to keep it secret. And then you don't know if it's even going to air. Like, you don't know you don't know. You just don't. You literally, they're amazing, supporting you to get you to that point, and obviously the whole thing is obviously going to be terrifying. For me, I'm always so busy, and I'm always doing something ridiculous that it wasn't wildly out of
your comfort zone.
Yeah, because I had pitched a lot, because that's what you do when I knew that I was preparing for investment. So you'll know, like, when you if you're need to raise investment, you pitch a lot, and you get to know your product so well because you live and breathe it. So it's only those things like the finance questions, really, that if you know your product and you know that it's got all, you know, the reasons behind it, and that it should be getting investment and it should be winning awards, whatever, like if you're that confident in it and you've got proof of that, then it's just not getting caught up in all the rest of it. But I think it was just such a whirlwind. I rushed. It was all a rush. I'd just done a whole stint in Boots for an event, and then I'd rushed up there, and I'd written my final pitch literally 1 o'clock in the morning the night before. So I barely had any time to practice it and go through it, winging it as always. Get there, just by chance my stock arrived in time. If it hadn't, don't know what I would have done. And then just waited in the got my makeup done and all the rest of it that you do. You have to do lots of behind the scene filming, and, you know, like walking into the lift and, you know, reaction things and all that kind of stuff that you have to do while you're waiting. And then that's it. And then you go in and you just pitch. And then, you know, everyone's different. So I'm sure anyone that's like a Dragon's Den fan would have read about the fact that you're not in there for 10 minutes or however much is shown. I was lucky I got the full kind of 10 to 12 minutes, which is the biggest segment of the show that you can get. Some people, so many don't make it to the show. So many cut. And you, bearing in mind, so I'd filmed it in the June of 2022, and it didn't air till February 2023. So I had all that time not knowing.
How's life post Dragon's Den been? Are you glad with your decision to go on the show?
Do you know what? It's actually been over a year now since it aired. So yeah, it's like, I'm looking at the date. I'm like, yeah, it's going to nearly be 2 years since I filmed. So nothing really changed, as it were, up until it aired. I was still struggling. I still was just like, I don't even know how I'm going to make it to the show, because I don't even have the funds to get my stock to have enough if it goes wild in the show. Everyone's told that you need to make sure your website doesn't crash. It probably will crash, but just a heads up sort of thing. So you never really know. You don't know how well it's going to be taken. So it could have been a whole 10 minutes of people making toilet jokes, or like editing it to make me look really bad, or the product back. You just don't know. And especially as like, I was very open about my situation. I mean, again, links to the single mum thing. Before I even explained my business or my company, anything, I said, I'm Zoe, a proud single mum, because that comes above everything I do. So I am a proud single mum, and this is my business, you know? And so where I was very vulnerable, I spoke openly when they asked me questions about my mental health, because they'd picked something up, and I was very open about it. Again, who knew how it would be cut, and who knew how people would react? And it's amazing. It's amazing now. The response was amazing. The sales from the show saved my business completely.
Brilliant.
Oh, absolutely, completely. I have absolutely no regrets of going on Dragon's Den. Absolutely changed my business. Like it's
fab.
Amazing. But it doesn't mean that I think people assume, like, have such big assumptions of what that does beyond, say, the first few months or of sales, and that doesn't last forever. The things that you require are still going to be there, and I'm still people don't realize I am still doing the same thing. I'm working, there's still those crazy hours night and day from home. I don't have a team, so I don't have these things. I don't just pick up the phone to Sarah or Stephen and be like, yeah, can you just send it to this celebrity who's potty training, or this celebrity is just about to go on an outdoor run or an event, that could I get my product? Does not happen like that. There is absolutely no leg ups, nothing. Like, I am still doing what I did in order to get it to, say, a celebrity or to get my product into retailers. And I think people just assume that, oh, okay, so she's got, they've said that they'll get it into retailers, so that's what they're going to do. That doesn't happen like that.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
I, as a result of doing the show and as a result of what's come from that, then obviously it's going to give you, as long as you know how to leverage that. And the sad thing is that so many businesses burn out after that first year after Dragon's Den, because it's such a high and the sales go right up, and then you're almost in this false sense of security. And I've just seen so many just drop off and go into liquidation. And some of them are just incredible products. I don't understand it really, but I do, in the sense of I can see how that could happen, because I think people assume that everything's going to be okay because you've done Dragon's Den, and it's just not the case.
Yeah, I know. And yeah, unfortunately the truth is that behind all of these businesses and startups is just exactly. It's just an insane amount of hard graft. There is no magic wand. And like you say, it probably really helped with the awareness and boosting sales and all of that, but it's still you having to do the hard graft in the background and keep the momentum up.
Yeah, 100%. And then it's almost like it comes with that added pressure of the assumption. So it almost works against me, because people, if you read the emails or the DMs that I get, and I'm like, what do you think this is?
I know. It's amazing. I know. It is. It's fascinating sometimes, the assumptions people will jump to. But my final question, Zoe, is I would love to know, I mean, it's so inspiring, this journey that you've been on from single mom, from pregnancy, and, so many, so many obstacles that you've overcome, and you've done it with such resilience. And I love that you start with that you're a proud single mom, and Mason must be so in awe of you and so proud of you, and just, what an amazing role model you are to him as well. But I'd love to know, what are you most proud of?
I probably would say being a single mum, and I probably would say doing all of this whilst being a single mum. Like, I don't, you don't get the same satisfaction from, like, I could say I'm going to Downing Street tomorrow, right? Like, who just goes to Downing Street? But for some reason, those kind of moments, I still don't feel as, I don't know what the fit, but when I look at my son and I think, my God, like, what we've come through for you to be this incredible child, that is 100% like my proudest achievement. And that's why everything I do is for him, 100%. And before we do, I know we have to wrap up in a minute, but I think it's really important as well for you to know how incredible Frolo is. And because I'm going to tell you something that I haven't told anyone yet. As a result of, you asked me to write a blog, right?
Yeah.
And you posted that blog, and I got an email from someone who had read my story, and said, I felt every word of it, and I believe that our children have the same father. And so you can imagine, quite a shock.
No way.
Yep. So,
and is it the same father?
Yes. And so, as a result of me writing my story for Frolo, this lady found me, and now Mason has a sister that he's always wanted.
Oh, that is, oh
And
my
that's
God,
just
I
weeks.
have
This
chills.
has literally just happened.
That's unbelievable. Oh my,
It's crazy,
wow.
right?
Thank you so much. Thank you for sharing that. That is, I can't, I'm kind of lost for words. That is not what I was expecting to hear. So has Mason, have you met this? Okay, you've
They're
already met.
obsessed with each other.
Oh,
like
that's
the bond
amazing.
She's only 3. So, and it's quite.
That is absolutely amazing.
Completely the same situation. He did exactly to her what he did to me in the way he treated her and all the rest of it. So she went through exactly the same process as I did. But obviously she's her daughter's
earlier on. Yeah. Well, hopefully a really beautiful, silver lining and lemonade from lemon situation where you have, this new sort of, extended, family and support network as well. And Mason with his sister, that is, please keep me posted on that. And thanks again for sharing. Wow. It is amazing sometimes how the world and the universe works.
Right? Exactly.
It really is.
It really is.
Well, Zoe, thank you so much. It is really lovely to chat and reconnect. And I am just in awe of everything you've done. You're such a strong woman. You're so resilient. You're such an incredible role model to other single parents, to Mason, and to anyone who is thinking about doing something and starting something. You are proof that it's worth going for. And, it's, just hats off to you. And where can people find Kitty Whiz and you?
So on social media, search Kitty Whiz. I am just sort of going through this rebrand, so I am but Kitty Whiz can always find me at Kitty Whiz, or search the Whizzer, and various things like that, or just Zoë Chapman. That's my full name. But
we'll add it all into the show notes of the episode as well, so that it's easy for people to find you. And excited to stay excited to stay in touch and to keep watching your journey, Zoe.
And you. I can't wait to see what more you do with Frolo.
Yeah, right back at you. But so lovely to chat. And thank you so much to everyone for listening to this week's episode. And we will be back soon. And that's a wrap for this week. I hope you enjoyed this week's episode. If you did, then I have one small favour to ask. Please can you take a minute to subscribe to the Frolo podcast and give us a rating and review? This really helps other single parents who might benefit from it find us. The Frolo app, which is fully user verified for user safety, is available on the Google Play Store and the App Store, and you can find out more info and download links at www.frolo.com or follow us on Instagram at Frolo app. And you can purchase your copy of our book, How to Be a Happy Single Parent, at all the major book retailers. Until next time, have a great week.